If you've had any cryptid encounters that you'd like me to share on here, email me at jttosstories@gmail.com. Story 1. When I was really young, probably about 5 or 6, my family went camping. At the tippy top of the mountain. You really couldn't get higher on said mountain. There was a lake we were camping next to, so of course my family was fishing. My dad and mom, my uncle, and I were on the shore trying to get some fish. Across the shore, on the other side of the small lake, my brother had noticed a huge brown-black humanoid figure that was just standing still and facing right at us. It had to have been 8+ feet tall, maybe even taller since it was so far away. So, like any rational human would naturally do, my dad tried yelling at it, since he thought it was a prank of some sorts. I don't understand what my dad said, but I remember the sound the creature made back. It wasn't really anything that we could understand, just a kind of unintelligible screeching. It did, however, sound like he knew what he was saying, if that makes sense, like it was saying something to us, just only in his language. We were all looking at it at that point. My grandparents and my big brother had joined us. I remember my parents attempted to recreate the screeches he was saying, and he would respond. This went on for a couple of minutes. Then the creature took off, and I mean took off. Mind you, the entire time he was on 2 feet, much like human. He turned and started running towards the forest, and he was out of sight in seconds. He had to have been running between 25 and 30 miles per hour. My brother, grandpa, and dog tried chasing it, definitely the smart thing to do, and went back to where we had seen him and the direction he left it. They did find a huge lump of black hair that was stuck in a barbed wire fence, although I'm not certain it was really from the creature. Tell me why we didn't leave. We spent the night still and tense. It was very windy, and I don't think anyone actually slept. I think about it from time to time, but it honestly isn't that rare of an encounter in Utah. I've seen UFOs, my siblings have seen skinwalkers, my brother was followed home by a UFO, and I lived right by Skinwalker Ranch my whole life. I promise my family is not a bunch of kooks. Well, maybe a little, but not in the sense that you would all make up an encounter. I typed this out the week it happened, so the story is as accurate as I can make it. The date was November 8th, 2014. I was 23 years old, hunting outside of Kelowna for deer. Kind of inexperienced, new to hunting alone. I'd hunted lots with my dad and my brothers before, but it's different when you plan your own hunting. I found a small lake using Google Maps and decided to try hunting the area. I left my car and walked up the logging road, following a curve to the right. There was a cow moose standing there on the road, 30-ish yards from me around the bend. We stared at each other for about a minute until she turned left, my right, and crashed loudly through the forest. I pressed on. Let's say where I saw the moose is point A. I followed the logging road, which remained level until it hooked left and started climbing slightly. Basically kept climbing as it kept veering left, making a big backward C shape from point A to where I stopped at the end of the road, point B. The road ended in a cut block where uphill from me was cut block and then forest, which continued onto the other side of the hill until it reached the highway to Big White. Downhill from me was the rest of the cut block, and then forest between point A and B. I decided to enter the lower forest and make my way straight back down through to where I saw the moose, kind of turning the backwards C into a full-on capital D. So I was just pressing through thick forest, making lots of noise, maybe for about 15 to 25 minutes, going slowly, until I came to a steepish ridge I would have had to scamper down to keep going in the direction I was headed. Suddenly, from down in what appeared to be a clearing, I heard a snap snap, or like a crack crack, and I thought there must be an animal down there that heard me coming and ran off. I couldn't see past all the tree branches, except when I looked down the ridge. I could see it opened up with flat ground and tall, dead grass. But the trees on the steep slope itself blocked all view into the clearing below. So anyway, I waited. I would guess I was just hoping whatever was down there would wander my way so I could see what it was. Fat chance, right? Honestly, I thought it had to be a moose or bear because of just how loud the noises were. What felt like maybe a few minutes later, I heard another snap. Just one this time. At that moment, I thought, wait a minute. That one was definitely a branch breaking. Definitely wood. So I began to ponder what could the first two noises have possibly been. Well, lo and behold, crack, crack. The noise came again. 2 clack sounds, exactly like the first time. Now, I was new to hunting on my own, but I certainly wasn't new to wildlife. I was immediately puzzled that some animal down there could make the exact same non-vocal noise twice. I knew it was something in the environment being used to make that noise too. As I wondered, a squirrel started chipping off to my left. And suddenly I heard this pounding, beating noise. It started slowly, then got faster and faster, until it was one solid noise, like a classic drum roll on a snare. And as the noise grew from separate beats towards one solid sound, it sounded like it was getting closer, to the point where I actually scrunched my face and squinted, because it sounded like the source of the noise was about to burst out of the branches in front of me. But, just when it sounded like the source of the noise reached me, it was over. At that moment, I was just so shocked. My heart was pounding. I didn't think of it then, but looking back, it sounded like a really big guy pounding his chest. It went from a slow, steady pace to right so fast the beats all seemed to blend into one constant noise. It was so weird. I later YouTubed gorillas pounding their chests, and that kind of makes more of a suction cup, hollow noise. But the noise I heard, it was like a really big person wearing a thick jacket, kind of muffling each impact. That, or a grouse on steroids. You know when they take off and startle you with their out-of-nowhere rapid-fire wing beat. But man, was it loud. Far too loud to be a grouse. There's no doubt in my mind a human could not have done it. Anyways, all of a sudden my rifle felt totally useless, and I just sat there perplexed. I think at this point, I realized I had stumbled upon a Bigfoot. I can't remember exactly, but maybe I reached for my pocket and I had left my phone in the car. Of course. Well, I wasn't going to risk showing myself without a camera to catch something. I also feared them seeing my rifle, and that might make it twitchy, so I waited some more. Between the squirrel and the beating chest till I realized it was Bigfoot was like 15 or 30 seconds. Then after a few minutes, I heard the same clack, clack, and a couple minutes later again, clack, clack, over and over and over. It was as if it was still saying, "I'm still down here. Go away." In between the clacks, it felt like it was listening to see if I was leaving yet. When you think about it, any other creature that might have stumbled upon the Bigfoot like I did would have turned away and ran off after the first crack, crack, but I just stayed there. As I looked around, I noticed rocks everywhere the size of oranges. Then it hit me. If I were to pick 2 of them up and smash them together, that would be the exact noise I was hearing. Except, later on, after this whole thing, I did try smashing 2 decently sized rocks together. I had the sound right, but I could not bring my hands together fast enough to replicate the intensity of the impact. Anyway, it couldn't have been more than 20 yards away. But then, one of the clacks I heard sounded like it was much farther away, like 30 to 40 yards. Hard to be sure, obviously. So I figured the thing was just leaving. Nope. I soon heard the same clack again where it had been all along. and then I realized there must be more than one Bigfoot down there. Not to mention, in between rock smashes, I could hear the Bigfoot shuffling around down there. It was insane. It sounded so massive. Like the footsteps weren't big, huge thuds, but they were, how do I say? Well, it sounded like they were compressing a lot of earth with each step. Or maybe another way to explain it would be, it sounded like as the thing was moving, it was slowly displacing a lot of air too. Like a big shag carpet being swung through the air. I don't know how else to describe it. In between the cracks, when I heard those big, airy noises, I pictured them communicating or something, as if they're gesturing like, what do we do now? To each other. So, yeah. I sat there for about 20 minutes, listening to rocks getting smashed together in the same tempo, in the middle of a forest no one in their right mind would randomly walk into. I'm a Christian, so I was actually praying, asking God, what is going on down there? Would these animals hurt me if I let them see me? Would God protect me? If they are intelligent, how intelligent are they? What the heck, God? You know, those kind of questions. After I'd had enough, I decided to leave like they clearly wanted me to. I stood up, let the blood flow back into my legs. I was kind of squatting the whole time. And went left, cutting the D in half. I headed back to where I thought the road was at its roundest point in the curve, and I made sure they heard me leave. I got back to the road and my car without incident, but I kept looking over my shoulder, just in case. To my surprise, when I got to where I parked, a guy and a girl had just pulled up nearby and gotten out. I forget what they were doing in the area. I want to say they were also looking for the small lake I was, but I could be wrong. I told them what just happened and probably freaked them out. It was so eerie, thinking about how it all went down. They heard me coming, obviously, and warned me of their presence by smashing rocks together. Like I said, if I'd been an animal, I would have left at that. But I sat there, and they knew I wasn't gone. So it was this spooky, intelligent reminder to keep my distance, I guess. I imagine they were frustrated that I stuck around, so the chest pounding came in, and then it was rocks after that. It was so weird feeling not in control of a situation with animals. At least, I think they're animals. I know that so long as I'm armed, I wouldn't be afraid of seeing a bear, or big bull moose, or wolf, cougar, anything. But I was so painfully aware of how small and helpless I was in that situation. Which feels dumb to say, because obviously they didn't want to cause me any harm, right? They could have been on me so quickly, I wouldn't have had time to think. Oh, also I went back up with 2 different friends on 2 occasions to find the spot, and we couldn't locate exactly where in the forest this happened. But one of the times we saw a big bull moose at the top end of the logging road. Interesting to think wildlife can be so near to where Bigfoot are. Are they unaware, or do they know? If I had had my phone, I like to think I would have been able to work up the courage to try to get them on video. But honestly, I was pretty frightened. Without my phone, I felt like peeking was just a big risk with potentially no reward, but rather potential consequence. I sort of regret not actually seeing them, but at the same time, I'm also totally satisfied having just heard them so bloody close. But to whoever's reading this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was such an idiot and left my phone in the car. Since then, I've made an effort to bring my camera with me when I go hiking or hunting. I really hope one day I get a more safe opportunity and vantage point to see them. I am buying a thermal optic soon, and I think that will be a game changer when it comes to scanning landscapes while hunting or hiking. Maybe if I'm lucky, or unlucky rather again, I may capture one of these things on thermal.